Okay, today I want to talk about the end of distance, which is an interesting concept. And the idea is that we now have a much smaller world because of technology. And I want to talk about some of the technologies that are available today and things that are bringing people closer together and perhaps ending the tyranny of distance. And for me in Australia and many of the people here on the webinar who are in Australia, for a long time we've suffered the tyranny of distance and sometimes the benefit of distance because we have been further away, we have been insulated and isolated, but sometimes that works in our favor because it means that we've had less competition, we've been less buffeted by things that are going on in the rest of the world. However, now with the end of distance, some of those barriers are falling away, and that's good and bad. If you take advantage of them, it's good. If you neglect them and forget them, then it's very easy to be left behind. So some of the things I'm going to talk about today are things that I generally talk about in my conference keynote presentations, and in particular, I have a presentation which I call the Fit for the Future, and it's all about becoming fit for the future in our fast changing world. And so I'm going to share with you some ideas from that. And because this is a webinar, I like to make it a little bit more interactive, process oriented. So I also run breakout sessions about helping people then implement some of these ideas. So I'm going to take one of the processes that I use in my breakout sessions and run it through this webinar so that I'll ask you to do some work. So please be ready to do some work in this webinar. So it's going to be more than just me talking and you sitting there and listening. I'd love you to participate and do the work, because then you'll get the most value from this half hour that we've got together, rather than you just getting some ideas that you can then take away and find some time to put into practice later, or to think about later. So I really want you to actually do some work in this webinar. So I'm going to broadly, the way it's going to work is I'm going to share with you 5 big ideas related to the future, to the end of distance. And then I'm going to ask you questions about how does this affect you, and how does this affect your business? How does this affect your industry? How does this affect your clients? And as a result, then what's this going to mean for you in terms of you moving forward in the future? Okay, so the framework that I'm going to give you for each of these 5 is I'm going to ask you, what difference does this make to 4 different areas of your life? Okay, so I'm going to share with you one of these, and we'll do a practice example. I'm going to share with you one of these examples and say, okay, what difference does this make, first of all, to you? In your personal life, what difference does it make to your business or your professional life, so your business or your job? The third one is, what difference does this make to your customers or clients? And the fourth one is, what difference does it make to their customers and clients? Okay, so with each of these 5 pieces of technology I'm going to share with you about the end of distance, I'm going to ask you, how does this affect you personally? How does this affect your business? How does it affect your customer or client? How does it affect them? So broadly, the things I'm going to say are the things that affect you. I'll go, oh, that's really cool. I can really use that in my personal life. So that's the first level. The second one is, oh, that could be really useful for me in my business or my job. Okay, so this is personally useful in my business or my job, not necessarily in dealing with clients, but in my business or my job. The third level is, actually, this could be really valuable for me in dealing with customers and clients. Okay, so in that customer-client interface, so in the externally facing part of your business or your job, this could be really valuable. And the last one is, gee, this could really disrupt my business because it's going to be significant for my clients' or my customers, and as a result, maybe I don't have customers anymore because their customers are doing something completely different. So I no longer have the people who are paying me because they're out of business, if you like. Okay, so those are the 4 areas. So is it cool for me? Is it useful for me in my day-to-day professional life? Is it valuable for me in dealing with customers? Or could it completely disrupt my business because their customers no longer need to use my customers anymore? Okay, so I hope that makes sense at an intellectual level. Let's do that with an example. So here's an example. I'm doing quite a bit of work now with financial planning groups and in the financial services sector. And so here's an example. So in financial planning, and I can see some people in that sector here on today's webinar. So you know what robo-advice is. And it's the idea that maybe you don't need to go to a financial planner anymore. You can go online, plug in some numbers into an online form, platform, and it comes back to you with a fully fledged financial plan. So some people are saying that you can only do that for simple financial plans. Some people are saying in 20 years' time or 10 years' time, financial planners are going to be redundant because it'll all be done electronically. Let's not get into that argument now, but let's assume that it does happen. Then what does it mean? So if you go, okay, that's actually cool. For me at a personal level, I could say, okay, I don't need a financial planner. I can go and do it all online. Maybe I'll have an app. Maybe I'm paying $10 a month for access to this, and it gives me advice. Sets out a plan, and then just like my Fitbit app, I can monitor my progress on a day-to-day basis if I want to. Okay, so that would be an example of this is really cool. Is it really useful? So in my professional life, is it useful? Well, for me as a professional speaker, it definitely is, because when I'm talking to financial planning groups, it's useful. But I'm more thinking in my business, is it useful for me to have access to financial planning robo-advice? Probably not. But if I say had employees, I could say, okay, well, my employees, I'm going to send them to a robo-advice site, and they can, even get initial planning guidance before they go to a financial planner. So again, that could be useful in my business if I had employees and team members. Is it valuable for my clients? Absolutely. If I'm speaking to that sector, then I need to know this stuff because it's valuable for me to share it with them. But think about your business as well. Would the fact that financial planning can be done by robots or by software, could that be valuable for your clients? And then the last one is it disruptive? So for financial planners, this could definitely be something that's a competition for them, or it could be an opportunity for them. Either way, it could be valuable for their clients, and therefore it could be disruptive to my business. So if I'm working with financial planners, say I'm doing consulting for them, and then they go off and and all their clients are going off using robo-advice, maybe the planners go out of business, in which case that is disruptive to my business. Okay, so this is all to do with me. Is it cool for me? Is it useful for me? Is it valuable for me to share with in dealing with my clients? And could it possibly disrupt my business because my clients go out of business, or my clients radically change their business and they don't need me anymore? Okay, so those are the 4 things I'm looking for. Any questions about that? About how we're going to run this? Okay, I can see a couple of people saying, yep, that makes sense. Can anyone think of, in this particular example, and you may not be able to come up with an example off the top of your head, but can you think of an example where robo-advice could be useful for you at one of these 4 levels? So is it that you go, oh, great, I'm going to go and find somebody straight away because I want to get my financial plan in place, or I want to offer this to my employees, or my clients really need to know that robo advice is available, or maybe it's going to disrupt their business. Okay, so I'm not expecting anyone to come up with an example straight away, but if there is one, I'll just stop for 30 seconds and give you the chance to have a think about that. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so that was just a practice example. It's got nothing to do with the end of distance, but the next 5 have. Okay, and what I mean by the end of distance is simply that things that used to be governed by distance are no longer need to be the case. So let's look at the first one. So the way we're going to do this, I'm going to have got 5 of these, and for each of them, I'm going to ask you, how could this be relevant to your business? And you can think about it in these four ways. Relevant to your life. So is it cool? Is it useful? Is it valuable for your clients to know about? Or could it disrupt your business? Okay, so here's the first one. This is virtual reality. And this is very big. Facebook's invested a lot of money in this, which means that they obviously think that it's something worth supporting. And the idea is that you put on a virtual reality headset, and you can immerse yourself in an artificial world, in a virtual world. Now, the original headsets were very big and bulky. Now they're much smaller. They're still not the same as just putting on a pair of glasses, but they're not bad. So this is, I went to a real estate conference last year, and one of the exhibitors was demonstrating how they're using virtual reality for real estate agents to take people through home walkthrough. So instead of having a home open, or instead of going for an inspection, if you want to buy a property, you can do a virtual walkthrough. You stick this headset, you look through this headset, and you can walk around the house. You go through rooms, you can open doors, or walk through doorways, you can look up, down, you can do an inspection as if you're walking around a house, from the comfort of your home. So from anywhere in the world. So if you're a client looking to, if you're looking to sell your home, the world could now be your market, and people from all around the world could be doing inspections of your house 24/7 without any interruption to you. So this is transforming the real estate industry. The virtual reality headset that you can see me using there is actually my phone, or it's actually the exhibitor's phone in this case. But if you've got an iPhone or an Android phone, then you can do this. You just stick it into a little headset, and suddenly you've got a virtual reality machine just from your smartphone. If you've never done this before, I recommend that you get Google Cardboard. If you haven't ever tried virtual reality, but you've got $15, so 1.5, you can go and order Google Cardboard, and it arrives in a little flat pack envelope, like free shipping, because why not? Like, it's $1 shipping. And then you just assemble it in 5 minutes, and then you can stick your iPhone or your Android phone into it, and then it suddenly becomes a virtual reality headset. And there are a number of apps that allow you to see what that's like. And it is quite amazing. And those devices are just going to get more and more flexible and comfortable. So it'll be like putting on a pair of glasses soon. Okay, so some comments here. Justice says, yeah, there's software that lets you set up similar. Yeah, exactly. So the fact that Facebook has invested heavily in it makes me think that if you go down this path, you're really going to be on a winner. Okay. So let's think about those 4 things. So cool, useful, valuable, or disruptive. So I'm going to stop and just ask you to type in the question box and just put one of those 4 words in there. So cool, if you think, oh, this is great, I could use it in this way, and then explain how you could use it. So for yourself, how do you think virtual reality would be useful? Would be cool. Useful is, how can I use this in my business? So how could this be of interest to me in my business? Valuable, how could I, working with my clients, could this be useful to them? And then what is the last one? Disruptive. Could this actually change the way that they deal with their clients? And in that case, like put them out of business, which would be disruptive for me. Okay, and I'll read out the comments as they come through. Okay, so Justice says there could be all 4 of them. So I'd like to know, like, in what specific way. So Megan says, yeah, cool, I could buy a property that way. Absolutely. Okay, so just for personal use, you could buy properties that way. You could sell a property that way. So that's in the real estate industry. What about in your industry? So for me, and I'll keep talking while you're typing in answers and while you're thinking about it. For me, as a professional speaker, there's already virtual reality software that allows audience members, so say anybody sitting at their desk, to put on a virtual reality headset, and they're transported into a meeting or like a conference. So instead of having to travel to a conference venue where a paid speaker has been hired to come and present to you, you just put on your headset and you're there in that venue virtually, and you can look around. There are other people there with you, and you can look up on stage and there's a speaker, and you can see and hear the speaker, and you can see their PowerPoint slides. In the future, the people around, when you look around, the people around you will actually be real people who are also logged in to this virtual world. Okay, so there's an example for me, and that could disrupt both. That could be disruptive to my business, because that means that maybe I don't need to be, there won't be a demand for me getting on a plane and traveling to a venue to speak at an event anymore. Okay, so another comment. By the way, if you want me to keep these comments anonymous and not mention your name, just say anon at the front of it, and I won't mention your name. Okay, here's another one. So your business, we could look at event locations for training courses all over the world. Yeah, exactly. So you could inspect locations before going to them if you're running events there. Yeah, so Anne says useful for showing applications in mathematics, 3D aspects and vectors. I think this could be huge for education. So my partner Nikki's daughter is currently doing year 12, and she's doing maths, she's doing chemistry, and I can just imagine putting on a virtual reality headset and walking around an organic chemistry model of a molecule, of a complex molecule, and seeing what that looks like. John says useful in selling, but disruptive to natural immersion. Yeah, in a space like tourism. Yeah, absolutely. So virtual reality, I started with this one because there's so many applications, and it doesn't take much to think of examples of where you could use virtual reality. So if you haven't done this yet, I really recommend investing $15 and 5 minutes of your time to buy Google Cardboard and try it. And just because Google doesn't only work on Google Android phones, it works on iPhones as well. Okay, so this is the way we're going to go, right? Okay, so that's 1 out of 5. So 1 down, 4 to go. And you can see how this is now the end of distance. The things that used to take a long time because of distance, suddenly the world has got a lot smaller. Here's another one. Okay, the next one is this. Commercial space flights. So there are a couple of companies doing this at the moment. Virgin Galactic is one of them, and Richard Branson predicts that when this becomes viable and feasible, you'll be able to travel anywhere around the world in an hour and a half. Okay, so for example, tomorrow I'm getting on a plane to fly to South Africa to speak at a conference, and it's probably going to take me the better part of a day to get there to speak at this conference on Monday. But imagine if that could be done in an hour and a half. So what would that mean for you, your business, your clients, and their clients? So again, I'm going to stop and ask you to share. So what could be cool for yourself personally, traveling for an hour and a half, traveling anywhere around the world in an hour and a half? The second one is what could be useful for your business internally? What could be valuable for dealing with your clients, or what could be disruptive for their clients, which might have that downward impact on your business. Okay, I'm just going to stop to give you the chance to write some answers. Okay, I see a couple of answers coming in still from the virtual reality ones. I'll read those out as well. So Roger says it could be good in the building and design architectural professions to show remote clients interior spaces. Justice says, yeah, could conduct EMF balancing training on your iPhone. Yeah. Okay, so quite a few still coming in for virtual reality as well. So that's good. So it could be cool. So cool is for yourself. So to see if a property meets your specs. Yeah, Megan says you could run your courses that way, present tech, and requires it to be short. And actually, Megan, that's right. At the moment, it requires it to be short, but I think very soon it'll be comfortable enough with virtual reality that you can actually, people will go and they can do a half-hour, 1 hour training course or longer just virtually. Okay, Justice asked some questions about jet lag and so on. So let's forget about all of those that are potential problems, but look at if this happens and we get commercial space flights where you can travel around the world in an hour and a half, how could you make it happen? So yeah, so for yourself, Megan says get more out of your holiday and make business trips shorter so there's more work-life balance. Tony says disruptive but useful. It means I can have clients from anywhere in the world. Exactly. And there's a whole bunch of industries that are going to be disrupted by that. You can imagine if you're working in the hotel accommodation industry and people no longer need to stay overnight because they've just had a long flight, or because the time zones are going to be a problem for them, or the time of travel is a problem, that could severely disrupt that industry. Anne says tutor overseas better. Yeah, exactly. So now the previous technology we talked about was virtual reality, where you can actually bring people virtually into your world, but this is actually bringing people physically into your world because they're only an hour and a half away. Any others? Okay, so I hope you're getting the idea that some of this technology may seem like it's a little bit in the future, and this one is the virtual reality is already there. This one's a little bit away, so it's still yet to be proven and tested, let alone become commercially available. However, it's not that far in the future. And what I'd like you to think about is, if it is going to come in the future, what implications does it have for us? What implications does it have for our clients and customers? And what implications does it have for their clients and customers? Okay, this is all about becoming more fit for the future. Okay, let's look at the next one. So the next one is drones. So Amazon already has this technology. A number of companies have this technology. I attended a futurist conference in Melbourne last month, and drones were very big in terms of the technology that's being promoted and sold in Australia because there's huge potential for them. So there's, and I've said here, delivery. So you can order stuff online and it's delivered by drone rather than by the Australia Post or your postal system. It's also used in other areas. So for example, in insurance agents, when they go around to assess a claim, they can use a drone to fly over property to see damage that's been done from overhead. They're being used, tradies can use them to do, so somebody who's doing roofing can fly a drone up on top of the roof to assess the roof. They're used in planning, so town planning can be used to local councils can use drones to do mapping and planning and assessment of building and development applications and so on. What about for your industry? And what about for you? Could this be cool? Could it be useful? Could it be valuable? Or could it be disruptive? Okay, going to give you the chance to answer that now. Yeah, okay, so Megan says make training material deliveries. Absolutely. So if you're doing training, yep, exactly. So another example that's not so much science fiction, even though it might sound like it, in healthcare, you can imagine that an ambulance picks up a patient and is taking them to hospital, but maybe it can only take them to a medical center that's close by because it's a real emergency. But a drone can be delivering the equipment and supplies that are required in order to do emergency surgery, for example. Yeah, Megan says you can watch your kids indirectly. In fact, there is a little mini drone that you can use. So the people who are obsessed about themselves in the selfie generation, they can now have a little thing that flies overhead and is continuously taking video of them, which they can then choose to selectively post to their social media accounts, which is quite interesting. Okay, so Gary says it's valuable. So I think it's rescue safety to drop equipment. Yep, exactly right. John says useful and valuable for out-of-reach experiences in tourism. Yeah, exactly right. Um, Justice says wow, and I think she's commenting about that, the video selfies. Okay, good. Okay, there's a couple more to go. So let's do the next one. The next one is an idea which has been around for a while, but it's becoming much more common now, which is the idea that people, especially knowledge workers, no longer need to work from an office. So they can work from home, they can work from cafes, they can work from co-working spaces that are especially set up for that. So we have this idea of the officeless office. So what does that mean? Could it be cool for you? Could it be useful for you in your business? Is it something that could be valuable for your clients to know about, or is it something that could disrupt your business because it affects their clients and customers as well? Okay, so for example, one of the consequences of this is places in regional Australia, like where I live in Perth, but a couple of hours drive away is the beautiful southwest of Australia, the Margaret River, Busselton wine region. And that's going to become a very attractive place to live in the next 20 or 30 years because the barrier so far has been distance. But if people can work from anywhere, there's going to be a whole bunch of people who will choose to work from there, not because there are jobs there, but because they can take their job anywhere. And that's a really interesting place. That's a really great place lifestyle-wise to live. Okay, so what else? Yeah, John says there's a concept about helicopter parenting, and that actually, yeah, you're right. That now makes it literal. Okay, so Megan says, yeah, so for you and your business, it's fantastic. We use Surface Pros, and it's amazing. Yeah, full access anytime, anywhere, and therefore very convenient. Absolutely. Okay, so it's absolutely changing businesses already. But again, you can imagine it's going to transform other businesses and entire industries. So, for example, the Southwest, where I've actually spoken at a couple of conferences recently, talking about the development of the Southwest of Australia, because there are going to be people who are going to move there, and the population is going to triple by 2050 because of people who are going to choose to live there for lifestyle, and they can because they no longer need to suffer from the tyranny of distance about being outside a major city. Okay, I'm just stopping to see if there are any other comments. Yep, so John says valuable and lifestyle enriching and distance-based teams. Yeah, exactly. And that's already happening now. And that has other challenges like different time zones, different cultures, different ways of management styles, different approaches to teams and just culture in general, like the way they treat women, the way they treat minorities, the way they treat hierarchy. So you've got all of that with distributed teams. Yeah, so Megan has a comment about their customers, a decentralization of the CBDs. So where does the community feel go? Caring for others, have to regionally support these other areas with hospitals and so on. You're exactly right, Megan. So it brings up a whole bunch of other challenges and opportunities as well. So maybe you get more of a community feel. In fact, people who work in co-working spaces, which are like these offices that are set up for people who are independent workers or telecommuters, they sometimes find that a wonderful place to work because they're not necessarily working with their colleagues, but they're interacting with other people who have a similar sort of lifestyle. They can stop and chat about their own businesses, their own projects, and so on, and it becomes better than working in an office. So some of those things are happening. All right, let's do the last one. The last one's one of my favorites, and this idea of driverless cars or self-driving cars, and it's not so far away now. They've already tested these. This is the Google car, and they've already tested this. They've done more than 1 million miles, a couple of million kilometers on regular roads with other traffic around them, with no accidents, except for other cars bumping into the back of them because they see this weird Google car on the road. In fact, true story that Google, you can just see behind this title here, there's this big camera on top. It says 360-degree camera. Google's invested a lot of money and time into making that smaller so that it doesn't distract other real drivers who are driving behind and get distracted by them. So driverless cars are not just the future, but they're the present. They're not yet mainstream, but soon they will be. GM and Uber and Lyft have just started announcing driverless taxis are going to be available in as yet unannounced city in the US. They're going to trial them, and very soon you won't be able to drive a car, because the only cars on the road will be driverless cars, because it'd be too dangerous to have human drivers. They're already safer than human drivers, and it would be ridiculous to have human drivers on the road when driverless cars are going to be so much safer, so much faster, so much more efficient. You won't need parking. So one estimate is that 1/3 of all driving in major city centers is people looking for parking spots. So driverless cars don't need to do that because they just drop you off and go off somewhere. You don't need parking lanes, so you already open up multiple lanes. Cars don't need to leave gaps between them because the cars are all connected wirelessly to each other, so they know when the car in front of them is going to brake, so they don't need to leave a safety gap. There's no drunk driving, there's no tired driving. If you're going from Sydney to Melbourne for a business meeting, you don't need to stay overnight in a hotel because you can get in your car and it drives there while you're sleeping in the car. So there's huge changes to almost every industry you can think of. Okay, and while I've been talking, people have been writing answers. Yep, no prangs or near prangs. I'm spatially challenged and I'll be buying one for sure. John says, yeah, surely the answer to backseat drivers and drink and drive. Yep. Megan says increased productivity as you can work while you're driving. Yeah, exactly. Less carbon footprint. Definitely, because these cars are electric cars. And that whole idea of increased productivity is exactly right. So first of all, you're going to have shorter commute times because there's going to be less, there may be more traffic on the roads, but it'll be less intrusive traffic. So you won't have long commute times. But also you can, while you're in the car, your car can be your office as well. John says next will be driverless trains. Yeah, exactly. And you can already see them in airports where they're just little shuttle trains, but there's no reason why that can't happen either. So what about in your industry? I'm really interested to know how driverless cars are going to affect your industry. So there's some obvious ones, like I said, with insurance. So car insurance disappears because you don't need to insure your car. The insurance is covered by the manufacturers. So that's an obvious one. Then the other obvious ones are just in things like automotive sales. But then there are less obvious ones like in hospitality, where maybe because you're driving, because you're sleeping in your car, you don't need to book a hotel room. What about in your industry? Do you think that driverless cars are going to affect your industry in a positive or a negative way? Either way. Okay, I'll just give you a few more seconds, and then because we're just at time, we'll finish up. Okay, great. So let's finish up. So just as an example, and I'm thinking about this because I'm speaking at a financial planning conference on Monday, and I'm going to show this and say, look, here's an example with how does this affect financial planners? Well, it actually does affect them a lot because it's going to affect their clients and their lifestyle. They might choose to be living somewhere else. They may not be investing a lot of money in cars over their lifetime. Their kids, they don't necessarily have to go and take the kids to school and pick them up because the cars can do that. So almost every aspect of their lifestyle might change. They might move elsewhere. They might not need to move close to work. All of those sort of things can change. And that, of course, affects financial planners. Here are some other examples that are coming up through the comments. Pauline says you can't see the relevance in rural areas. Actually, rural areas are ones that are going to benefit a lot from them, Pauline, because they, more than any, suffer from this tyranny of distance. So you could get into a car in one town and like go to sleep or work or have a social conversation or have a party in your car while it's driving you 4 or 5 hours away, or was currently 4 or 5 hours away. It'll probably halve that time because you can drive a lot faster and closer to other cars. So actually, it makes country and regional areas and rural areas a lot more attractive. As Justice says, yeah, it might encourage some people to come for a session. Yep. But again, Justice, think you can run your sessions in your car. So you can be a mobile practitioner or trainer. Megan says they don't have to visit the CBD to see a finance person. Yeah, they can go to them and have limited impact on productivity because they can do work. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think we know the impact of driverless cars yet. And some people are coming up with some way out scenarios, and they're not even way out. So some of the predictions that you see, again, if you think about healthcare, you're going to have driverless ambulances. And the thing with the driverless ambulances, it goes and picks up a patient. And because ambulances are emergency vehicles, they have priority on the road. So they can tell all the other cars, this is the route I need to take to get to the nearest emergency, to the nearest a hospital or medical center, and other cars will automatically give them way. So they don't have to have sirens blaring because they just know they can go there. They could have drones delivering the medical equipment to the nearest medical center. They don't necessarily need a specialist like a cardiologist to do heart surgery on the spot because maybe somebody's wearing an augmented reality headset that's guiding them through the surgery that they need to do at the medical center. So you can imagine all of these technologies converging in ways that are hard to imagine until they actually happen in reality. Okay, so these are some of the technologies that are coming to us, and I've only picked the ones specifically to do with the end of distance. And I'm going to, I could have picked any other area of technology, and I haven't. I haven't looked at things like artificial intelligence or robotics. I've just picked 5 to do with the end of distance. But I hope you can see that these are really going to have a huge impact on our world in the near future, and sometimes in the very near future. Okay, so that's what I want to talk about today. I hope you've got some ideas for today, and I hope that it's been an intellectual exercise for you to be a little bit open-minded and thinking about the future. But I hope you've also got some things that you can put into practice, and maybe things that you think about, oh, I can do this either for myself or for my clients. If you want to get some more questions, I've got 15 other questions you can ask yourself or your teams. Download the report. Please feel free to share. I'd love you to do that because I want people to start thinking about how they can become fit for the future. If you want to get in touch with me, and especially if you want to find out about my speaking, so you got a little bit of a glimpse of the sort of things I talk about in my conference presentations, you can find out more at gihanspeaks.com or gihanperera.com, and you can send me an email there if you want to. If you've got any further comments, you're welcome to do that. Somebody did ask, how can I see comments and do I get the recording? So yes, I will be sharing the recording on my YouTube channel within the next 24 hours, and I'll share some of the comments as well. The next webinar in this series, so if you're here live, watching this, you don't need to do anything because you get the reminders automatically. Maybe just make a note in your diary. I'm going to talk about how to build authority in a very highly distracted, fast-paced world, and that's coming up on Thursday, June the 9th. If you're not registered for this webinar series and you're watching the recording, then you can register at seeingintothefuture.com. And by the way, if you did like this webinar, then please do send your friends along to that website as well so they can register as well. It's free. I'm running the webinars regularly, and I want to really help people become fit for the future. So thanks everyone for coming along, and thank you so much for participating, because this webinar would have been nothing without your participation. So thanks for coming along, and I look forward to seeing you for the next webinar in a few weeks' time. Thanks everyone, and bye for now.